I want to talk about a text that I think perhaps gets overlooked or not thought about a lot in the Platonic sense or the Socratic sense, because it's not by Plato, it's not by Socrates at all. Um, there's a comedic playwright actually back in the day. His name is Aristophanes, and he wrote this title called "The Clouds." And it was the very first text we read in my political and social philosophy of history and law class last spring, and it was unique because it was a comedic playwright. It was a play, um, and like it's just unique to think about this being a play and suggesting certain things about Socrates. Like there's an argumentation of there's one of two things Aristophanes is really doing with this play. He's either warning Socrates or he is annoyed and suggesting you know what ended up happening to him is correct, where he was corrupting the youth and an impious man, blah 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 blah, the apology, right? Anyways, like clouds is a very unique text, and I think it's interesting, and it shows a lot of unique thought in the sense that it's kind of more of an education factor. It's kind of talking about education in the sense, do we is education appropriate, or what we use education for, kind of, at least that's kind of what I ended up getting out of it. But to set the stage, there's a father named Strepsiades, and he has a son named Pheidippides, I believe so. um, and Strepsiades is a man that's, he has slaves. Slave enslavement was a typical thing. And I have not brushed up on this play, so this might get rough. But I just like to I think about things and I like to talk about them. But Strepsiades is a man that has a bunch of debt and collectors, and he's wondering how to pay these debts. He's kind of, I think he's got the sense that he doesn't really like want to work hard for it and like actually go earn it. He's kind of just indebted, and he's like, man, like there's got to be some other way. Um, what he really tries to do, he tries to push his son to go to the Thinkery, and this is where Socrates is. It's called the Thinkery. It's kind of looked at, especially in the play, as like an oddball place. Like there's kind of a bunch of weirdos in there, but there's a really good teacher named Socrates in there. A really good teacher. We don't really know what he looks like in that sense, or quite yet. Um, but Pheidippides, he's like, I don't want to do any of that, Dad. Like I don't want to do any of that, bullshit. I want to just, you know, get good at. I think it was chariot racing. He wants to be a chariot racer, and he wants to like do that. That's his passion, right? He wants to be a chariot racer. So Pheidippides kind of like disappears for a little bit at the start, and so Strepsiades, being the man that he is, he's convinced he can think a way out of his credit or his debts. So he indeed goes to the Thinkery himself, and the depiction of Socrates in in the clouds is very funny, and this is like the thing that it's poking fun at Socrates in a sense. Like the first thing you hear of or think of, not think of, but the first thing they kind of like show you or try to illustrate to you is that Socrates is what was it? He was like hanging in a basket, and like slowly coming down. It's just like a very weird picture. Like what is going on in here? And like there's a bunch of like um young students, like I forgot what it is. They talk about a lot of things like can like they talk about a lot of stupid stuff, in a sense, but stupid, but like you don't really know if they're like truly trying to attach merit to it or not. They're talking about like, can you see a flea, like can a flea fart, and all these stupid little silly things, right? um and the comedy's actually pretty good in it. Like there's some good stuff, and obviously the humor is going to be drastically different from what we think of humor, but you can get the sense of like this is comedic. But he goes to Socrates, and he's like, Socrates, I want you to teach me. Um, man, I really should have touched up on this, but just in a sense, it's um, yes, argumentation. It's like, oh, I should have true. It's like in a sense, like truth or not truth, or like argumentation versus better versus worse argumentation. There's a sense of like teach me how to talk my way out of my debts, because he believes that there is a way to talk your way out of your debts. And in a sense, if you're if you're smart enough and you can articulate your words enough, you can kind of get to that point. Um, it's like just speech and unjust speech. I don't know how I don't know that because that word, but just and unjust speech. He wants to learn both of these in tandem so he can utilize it against his creditors, get out of his debts. And Socrates is not necessarily showing it yet, but he's relatively annoyed with this old man attempting to try to learn, because when he does try to teach him, he's like, "Man, you're just an old fuck. Like you can't learn anything new anymore. You're kind of worthless in a sense." And there's this very big, immense chorus of the clouds that happens, a booming voice, and it's like suggesting, you know, better argument versus worse argument. It's a talk with an inanimate thing suggesting how to argue. But also, what's unique is when you articulate Socrates and you suggest certain things, like they have a conversation about thunder, right? Socrates suggests, well, what do you think, or like thunder and like lightning are? And of course, Strepsiades, being a Athenian, says, oh, well, it's Zeus, of course. And and Socrates goes, you fool, it's not Zeus. Zeus doesn't, like, what? It's not Zeus, you idiot. It's just, it's the clouds. Um, Here comes that attachment to that impious idea that we see fall into the apology and what he ends up getting tried with. um, Nevertheless, to say, Strepsiades ends up not understanding anything truly, and he's not. The whole moral there is like he's not going there to learn to learn. He's going there to learn to misuse some uh, uh, to misuse some way of thinking for malicious reasons. In a sense, he's trying to get one over on someone, and I think Socrates understands this. So he ends up thinking he doesn't, he can't do it. He can't learn. I don't know if Socrates ends up kicking him out, or he's just like, you need to go, or Strepsiades ends up leaving. Strepsiades leaves. He then like forces Pheidippides to go and learn it himself, because he thinks maybe my son can do it. So if Pheidippides goes in there, and there's not a lot to be said, but he goes in there, and then basically, time passes. Pheidippides comes out, and he's completely changed, right? Completely, absolutely changed. And he goes to his father. His father's all excited. No, you do know how to do this? How do you get me out of my debts? And Pheidippides, uh, starts to like talk back to him. And now you got to think like in Athenian time, like you don't badmouth your parents and you don't attack your parents. And Pheidippides starts to, you know, hit his father. He starts to attack him in a sense. And this is very important because he goes, "Well, you hit me when I was a child. Why can I not hit you now?" And we're getting into this like idea of maybe corrupting the youth in a sense. And Pheidippides is now, you would argue he's corrupted, like he's on the wrong path, especially in the Athenian eyes. But there's merit to what he's suggesting. Is like, well, you beat me and you just forced me to go do this. It's like, fuck you. And then Pheidippides goes, you madman, like what would you do if your mother was here? Well, and he goes, well, I guess I'd beat her too. And if I did, so like this whole articulation of a man who's trying to get something to get one over, it comes back to him. And it's but also there's that factor of like Socrates is showing his colors, but he's getting shown his colors through a man making a playwright through him, and he's not painted in the best light. And at the end of the day, or at the end of the clouds, um, Pheidippides or Strepsiades is so upset with what his son has done. He goes and I think he is the one that ends up burning the thinkery down, and it kind of ends there. Nothing like too crazy, but it was interesting. I think everybody should read it. It wasn't the best like explanation, but like it's cool to see how some of these things tie together in their time, especially with Aristophanes suggesting perhaps what Socrates is doing is going to get him killed in the end, and it does get him killed in the end, or perhaps that he's just he doesn't enjoy Socrates himself. I don't know.